Most of my life I struggled with who I was, felt guilty and ashamed of it growing up. It was a long time ago, and was told by adults I had to keep it to myself, that that wasn't appropriate, that boys don't play house with the girls, and I don't go to dance class in tights, and so I learned to keep it to myself, and it caused me a great deal of harm throughout most of my life. And then eventually, about midlife, or presumed I know what mid of my life is, but about 15 years ago I finally came to terms with that. I was homeless and on the streets of Toronto, and once I got off the streets and housed, I started to deal with some of my emotional trauma from my childhood, and realized that indeed it wasn't a phase, that so I changed my name to Susan and began living as a woman. I had come to terms more or less with who I was, and by the time I got to City Hall, well, I had news for Bob Gallagher, who was managing Olivia's office, and said, "Bob, I've got some news for you. I'm changing my name to Susan. I'm going to live as a woman." And so I was left work that week, and Bob said, "Well, come back next," said, "We'll see you next week, Susan." There was really no way to, put the toothpaste back in the tube once it was out. You're not alone. Find some support, find good access to health care if you can. Reach out and talk to someone. High rates of suicide in our community. Something like 77% of trans people in Ontario have attempted suicide. Somewhere up close to 50% have succeeded. But there is hope, and there is a future, and sometimes it gets better. So, and things are changing. The world is changing, and a new world is possible. With Jenner's story coming out, I didn't get a 2 hours on national media when I came out, and that's that individual's journey. But what we do share, so we have very different lives. I'm low income. I'm not an Olympic athlete. I'd like to think I could be, but I'm barely lucky to be able to run 10K for charity. But what we do share a common experience of feeling different, probably from the earliest years, and we don't know what's going to happen, what the individual is going to say tonight, Jenner. But I think let's try to be a little kinder. Let's try to be a little gentler with each other. And if you know someone who comes out as transsexual, transgender, gender non-binary, or any other difference, try to reach out and be a friend. Try to reach out and be helpful. Just be there to support someone and let them know that they're not alone, and that they're loved, and that they belong.